Hello and welcome to this podcast from the BBC World Service. Please let us know what you think and tell other people about us on social media. Podcasts from the BBC World Service are supported by advertising.
This is Crowd Science on the BBC World Service. I'm Marnie Chesterton. Each week on this show, we take one of your questions and track down the scientists and researchers around the world who can help us find an answer. And this week, we're in Toledo, trying to train my memory. How much of that can you remember, Simon?
That we are in Toledo and we will be training something.
Useless. Simon Reinhart is underplaying his talents. He's one of the best memory athletes in the world and is able to remember a deck of cards in 20 seconds and long strings of random words. And he's going to be teaching me. But first, the reason that I'm in Spain bothering Simon? It's because of Crowd Science listener Matibi.
Hello, my name is Matibi and I'm from London. My question to Crowd Science is, can I train my brain to remember better? Can it run out of space?
Matibi, why are you interested in these questions?
I was studying my A-levels, I was revising hour after hour, and I had a friend that could just look at the book once and just remember it all. And I have to look at it again and again and again. But yeah, I always wish I could remember more, but I can't sadly.
What would you like us to find out?
I think for me, before I go to university, it'd be interesting to know what is the most effective way to train your brain to remember more, and how much I can remember.
So, can you train your memory and can it get too full? That's what student Matibi wants to know, so that's what we're going to be exploring in the programme. We want to know what's going on in the brain when we remember stuff. And I'll be climbing into a brain scanner to test my memory. There is a way of testing the limits of what a human brain can remember. You need to test the best rememberers out there. You need a champion. Memory athlete Simon is in Toledo, Spain for the European Memory Championship, hosted by the International Association of Memory, which is just one of the organisations that hosts memory championships across the world. Simon can demonstrate just how much a human brain can remember, as we'll see when he competes to defend his European champion status. But first, I want him to share some of his tricks with me to train my brain. So, you're going to help me memorise a list of 20 words?
Yes, this will be our goal. So I think it will be very interesting because as far as I know, you have never done this before.
So what are we going to do? What technique are you going to use to help me remember?
It's called the method of loci. Loci is simply the old Latin word for location.
To use the loci method, you need to pick a journey you know well. Simon asked me to pick one with at least 20 memorable places, so I've chosen the journey from my front door in London to the train station. Meanwhile, Simon has written a list of 20 random words that I haven't seen. My task is to remember this unrelated list of words by placing each word at a point along my journey.
Try to find a kind of similarity between my word and your location. Like a bit of it's of the same group, it's of the same material. Somehow it is similar. The idea is afterwards, if you go through your 20 locations again, that the location itself, some kind of aspect of it, some kind of property of it, will remind you of the word that you memorized because it has a close connection.
This sounds rather abstract. I'm not sure I'm doing it right, but I'm giving this my best shot.
Okay, the next location?
Is my neighbour's front door. And I can see it and there's a package outside the front door. Okay,
so it's right next to your own door. My word would be tree. Perhaps you can find a similarity between this in a way or something that how these two things can be connected adequately.
Okay, tree. Neighbours, cardboard package outside the neighbour's door. And a tree. And so the cardboard comes from a tree.
Yeah, okay.
Still not sure how making random extra connections is going to help do anything but confuse my poor brain. But as I look at Simon, I figure if it works for him...
Next location.
Next location is the corner of my building, where one of my neighbours weirdly just leaves random food.
Perhaps my word can help with the explanation. I have frog.
Frog. Now, this training went on for a bit. Producer Louisa sometimes giving her obviously brilliant, sometimes unhelpful input. The next location is Blue Door on one of the big houses as I walk up the hill.
Cheese.
Cheese.
The cheese that's blue? A blue cheese, Gorgonzola.
No, this is you remembering. This is not me remembering. Stop feeding me
Gorgonzola?
stuff.
No.
I simply noticed that very often shape similarity works very well.
Okay.
So try to find something, try first to get an image of your typical cheese, if it's like round or if it's not round, and try to find something at the store that has a similar shape.
Finally, it was time to put it to the test. House, tree, vase, road, brick, frog, tomato. I could remember all 20 words, although I think taking half an hour to do so detracts slightly from my victory.
Very nice.
It was my first go, and Simon assures me anyone can do this, and improve with practice. But what Simon was teaching me was amateur hour. It gets far more complicated. The crowd science team has descended on the Spanish medieval fortress town of Toledo. It has beautiful weather and architecture, but producer Louisa and I are seeing none of that. We're inside in a school classroom for the European Memory Championship. There are people from all over the place at the competition.
My name is Ian and I'm from England.
Мене звуть Гордій, і я Atenska, is the last.
The Memory Championship is a decathlon, which means 10 different types of memory tests over 2 days. The participants compete in remembering binary numbers, lists of ones and zeros, remembering images, decks of cards, and long lists of words.
Cheese, sun, friend, window.
But what's the favourite discipline? Slightly to our surprise, binary numbers was high on the list for many.
My favourite discipline is binary numbers.
Binary numbers.
Binary digits.
Not everyone was on board with the binary discipline, though.
Binary is... You don't need such memorization in your real life, I think. But who knows?
And name and faces. I don't like numbers.
I think it must be historic dates.
My favorite is images.
There is a winner in each discipline. However, there can only be one overall winner, one European champion. But not everyone is out to take the big prizes. Many are just here to break their own personal records. Meet senior arbiter Natalie.
One really lovely moment for me yesterday. The competitors had just done spoken numbers, where they have to listen to a long, long number, like a long telephone number. How long a telephone number could you remember just hearing it once?
Probably less than a telephone number. I'd say probably about 6-7 numbers is my limit.
Adult world record is over 450 digits. That's equivalent to a phone number 7.5 minutes long, spoken 1 digit per second. But yesterday I was reading out the results for spoken numbers, and one of the Spanish competitors was really happy because he had got 13 digits and this was his personal best. And the rest of the competitors just clapped and cheered.
It sounds like a really supportive family.
Absolutely.
In championship conditions, you need a scrupulous judge.
I have an eye for detail, having Asperger's, a very, very strong sense of fair play, being able to interpret rules well, to apply things. I am much better as an arbiter because of that than I would be as a competitor. It wouldn't interest me to compete, but I want things to be fair. And when occasionally there have been situations of friction, it will be because I'm standing there going, but it's not fair. You're not treating this person in a fair way.
For Natalie, fairness is everything, and nothing is likely to get past her watchful eye. The most exciting competition is the last one of the day.
The most spectacular and the most visual thing to see today is speed cards.
Speed cards is an event where you have to remember the correct order of an entire pack of 52 playing cards. The competitors are given a maximum of just 5 minutes in order to do this. Then they take a second deck and arrange the cards into the same order. For Natalie, this is a tremendously exciting moment.
And then an arbiter and the competitor check the cards one by one to make sure that the two are exactly identical. And that could be tense. When memory sports started, people thought 2 or 3 minutes, that would be good. The human brain wouldn't be capable of much more than that, would it?
Well, we're about to see firsthand what the brain is capable of. It's the final event of the day, of the competition. The memory athletes sit in an unglamorous room, fluorescent strip lights, ceiling tiles, rows of desks, and stare at the decks of cards in front of them. As Natalie says, the most intense discipline is to remember a deck of cards at speed. 20.4 seconds is my memory trainer Simon's record. So looking at the cards for 20.4 seconds and then rearranging a new deck of cards into the right order. Simon used to hold the world record, but he lost it last year when Alex Mullen did it in 16.9 seconds. Something that's bugging Simon. He wants his record back. Now, remember the loci memory technique that Simon was trying to teach me? Pick a well-known journey and make associations at locations. To make everything faster, Simon turns pairs of cards into an image.
So I always make an image of 2 cards. Each combination of 2 cards stands for one specific image, and I always put 1 on each location.
Now when they're ready, go.
Simon has closed his eyes. He's walking himself through a mental landscape somewhere in Munich, his hometown, ready to place 2 cards at each spot.
The first location was the bus stop, relatively close to my old school. The cards gave me the image of a small garden plant, and since there is still a bit of grass there in one spot of the bus stop area, it is rather easy to connect the garden plant with this small patch of grass.
You may think this is silence, but that noise is the sound of memories being formed, loads of them, and at speed. This is the sound of an athlete at work.
The next location is a tree, and the image I got there was like a little present. It might make sense, I know it was my first association to simply that someone had left a present there. Perhaps at Christmas time, Santa Claus lost a present there or something.
Stop.
Simon, that was really tense. That was incredibly exciting to watch. It's fascinating watching like everything. I was feeling for you every time a door opened when it shouldn't.
If people need to ask questions, please do it quickly before...
Natalie has her beady eye on us. Right, quick. How did Simon do?
I tried to go for a really, really fast time. The world record is 16.96 seconds. I stopped the clock in my first try at 18.25 and then the second at 19.65.
Simon didn't get his world record back this time, but he won so many medals for individual categories that he sounded like a tambourine by the time he was announced overall winner, European champion.
So last year's European champion was very decent and brought the cup back for us, just so that we can give it back to him again.
Congratulations to Simon. I think I need to practice a bit more. Because anyone can do this. Brain scans of memory champions show that Simon's brain is just like yours or mine, totally normal. If you want to have a killer memory, it's all down to training and using the right techniques. But why didn't evolution equip us with a perfect memory in the first place? What stops us remembering everything? We wanted to find out more about forgetfulness, something we all probably suffer from to some extent.
We live in an environment that is full of information, full of potentially distracting things.
We headed to the Camilo José Cela University in Madrid. Memory scientist Javier García Pacios.
Memory is not a straightforward process, and there has been many proposals to explain its components and how memory works. But at least we can distinguish some processes.
Scientists generally agree that memory is very flexible and that there are 3 ground rules to making a new one. We need to get the information into our heads, store it properly, and successfully retrieve it when we need it. Javier calls these processes encoding, consolidation, and recall. And stuff can go wrong at each of these stages. So when you say you have a bad memory, it might just be that you have a problem with one of the stages rather than a faulty brain.
And recall or recovery of this encoded information.
I've just come from the Memory Championship and I was given a list of 20 random words to learn. So, house, tree, vase, road, brick, frog, they're in there, and what's happening now is they're being consolidated, right?
These memory stages are not close and interact one to each other. So you mentioned words like frog, tree, road, vase. So if at encoding you use memory...
You might have noticed Javier proved his point unintentionally. I didn't mention the word bus. He added that after I said road. So his brain made that association by itself, creating a false bit of information. Perhaps his memory was interacting with different systems, making associations to knowledge he already has, that on a road you might see a bus. One reason why your brain isn't up for remembering what seems to it to be random bits of information is because there's no direct biological reason to know, for example, that the capital of Burkina Faso is Ouagadougou. We aren't emotionally invested. Our brains are much more interested in anything to do with sex, food, or avoiding future threats.
Our brain system have developed mechanisms to both encode and consolidate these emotional memories better than neutral memories.
Okay, so if we drove the car here from Toledo, it was an hour of journey, and the bit that I remember the most was the bit where we nearly crashed. So that is my brain going... That is an emotion that is heightened because of possible threat. Therefore, it's important to remember that information.
Exactly.
I should probably say here that it wasn't Louisa's fault. She's an excellent driver.
I was about to say.
I'm intrigued to know what you think of how your memory works.
It's funny because one colleague from my department usually jokes about how at least cognitive scientists tend to research on those processes they are worse at. And it's a joke, but I think it's true for me. It's true in my case. I'm quite a bit distracted person, and I tend to forget things or forget about doing things, but I think it's more related on the encoding process than on memory itself. So I probably am not using the right strategies, or even I'm not using strategies at all, and this obviously hinder my encoding capacity and my memory performance at least.
Javier, that's fascinating. That's like someone who knows exactly what's going on in the brain when memories are happening, and you still have problem with remembering stuff. But at least you know where the problem is. It's getting it in there in the first place.
I'm trying to get it better.
So the next time you question your memory, rather than just cursing it, it might be useful to think about the part of the remembering process that might be going wrong. Javier has identified what might be his issue when it comes to remembering. He's not encoding the information properly, he's easily distracted, and if you don't pay attention to information, then it's not likely to stick. I mean, you're listening to me talking, hopefully, but there's loads of other things also happening to you right now. loads of sensory inputs. Maybe you haven't noticed the feeling of your clothes touching your skin or the taste in your mouth. All of this information could also be fed into your mind and encoded. But the brain is selective. Something that is seen or felt or heard is not automatically stored. My memory's not bad, but it's definitely not what it was when I was a teenager. Matibi's second question was, can the brain become too full? Maybe mine's just got less space left in it. Maybe that's why my memory skills have tailed off. Or have they? Time for some more testing.
Hi Marnie, are you okay?
Yeah.
Marnie, are you ready for your big exam?
Yes, I am. I'm kind of. Is it weird to say that I'm enjoying it in here?
That is a bit odd, actually.
I mean, I know it's got the sort of dimensions of a coffin, but it's quite cosy. And
I'm at the MRC Cognition and Brain Sciences unit at the University of Cambridge, where Louisa has volunteered me for a brain scan. So here I am inside an enormous white tube in a special non-metallic room, while producer Louisa and radiographer Karen monitor me through a thick glass wall. Also in the control room, memory scientists Dr. John Simons, postdoc Francesca Richter and PhD student Sana Korki. The brain scanner is an enormous, expensive magnet, so metal radio equipment nearby is a no-no. So we talk through the intercom. I'm going to be part of Sana's experiment, looking at how age affects your ability to remember precisely and where in the brain that happens. I'm going to be doing a memory test that measures how exact my memory is, and Sana can see what's going on in my brain at the same time.
So this experiment that we're running here is investigating how healthy aging affects your memory function and what are the changes on the neural level in terms of your brain structure and function that might be associated with memory decline in older age.
Okay, so there we can see the first structural scan of Marnie's brain.
Does that look like a good brain to
It
you?
looks a very fine brain indeed, yes.
So we've got Marnie's brain up on a monitor, sort of slice by slice. And John, do you think you could point out which brain regions are to do with memory?
Yeah, so we've known for a long time that some of the really important areas of the brain for memory are this area, the hippocampus, which is an area in the middle of the temporal lobe. The temporal lobe runs from the temple, hence the name, back to around the ear. So the hippocampus is really crucial for memory. If you have damage to that region, it can make you amnesic. It's not the only region of the brain involved in memory. There's a whole network of brain regions. And another important region is the parietal lobe. We think that's a region that's very important for determining the precision with which we're able to remember information. So that's why it's a region that's really important for this experiment, where we're interested in memory precision.
So while they're looking at my brain, I'm lying around in the scanner. I'm pointlessly competitive, so I really want to win this test. In the scanner, I'm shown a sequence of landscapes, each with a different object, in a different colour and place. I have to try and remember each shade and location. The rest of the team will be watching my progress on a monitor in the control room.
Yes, so now she's just studying the displays which have objects in different locations and colours.
In a field with a mountain in the background.
It's really fast. What do we see? Oh, okay, I didn't even see it. What's that?
So this is a picture of a mountain, and there's a bowling ball on top of it.
Floating around. Oh, it's changed. Okay. So right now, Marnie is trying to memorise all these pictures.
Exactly, yeah.
So there's 20 pictures. All of them have a different background and an object on them. And the object has a different colour and location, and Marnie has to remember both the colour and the location of the object.
Now she's doing it.
Yes.
Green hammer is on the right.
I think that was there's a dress and a mountain, and she's moving around the dress and changing the colour. And I don't remember seeing this at all. This is. We've gone to the Big Ben one, and she's putting it. I think that's right, a bit up, Marnie. A bit up. That wasn't right, was it?
I think that was quite close.
Was that quite
close?
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're a bit forgiving, are you? When you?
Yeah. So we can kind of look at whether the participants remember kind of the gist of the location or the gist of the colour, and then we can look at how precisely they are.
That one was also a bit further up.
Out of the scanner, I feel annoyed I'm not better at this game. I didn't use the memory technique that Simon taught me. It didn't seem to help here. But I'm eager to see my results and what my brain was doing as it attempted the test. Sana and Franca explain.
I've got the picture of my brain on a bit of paper here. Can you tell me which bits of my brain were working when I was trying to remember location and colour?
Around this bit of the brain here, which is the hippocampus in the sort of middle of the brain, would be more active when you were able to successfully remember some information about the colour or location of the objects. And then there's another area in the lateral parietal lobe of the brain, so in sort of the back of the brain around here, which increases its activity when you're able to recall information really precisely. So activity in that region tracks the precision of your memory retrieval.
So, Franca, what's the experiment actually for?
So we already know that older adults compared to younger adults are not as well in remembering sort of the precise details of the memory. So they remember the gist of it just as well, but they might be missing some of the details. And in this experiment, we want to actually compare a group of younger adults and older adults and see whether we can track any differences in brain activity or in sort of just structural anatomical differences that might explain why they might be doing worse in this task.
And just out of interest, am I a younger adult or an older adult?
What's your actual age? I could tell you that our younger group is 18 till 30 or 35, I think. 30. Yeah. And our older age group is 60 to 80, so I think you might be neither of them.
Yeah, I'm neither, yeah. Sana, I'm a middle adult, not a younger one or an older one. You've got my results up, have you?
Yes, we have your results up now. So it seems to be that you're doing very well on the task. On average, on 70% of the trials, you were able to successfully remember the gist of the color or location of the item. So I think that's about the average that we usually see. So that's, I think that sounds good.
Congratulations then, to my mind, for a job averagely done. And it isn't likely to get better because, as Sana's work shows, memory, like so much else, deteriorates as we get older. So is it a matter of use it or lose it? Can we fight memory loss? What is a memory? I mean, what does it actually look like in the brain?
Well, a memory in the brain is a bunch of connections between many of the neurons that we have in our brain. We have about 86 billion neurons in our brain, and all these connections together make up our memory of that previous event.
Our listener, Matibi, wants to know how much information you can jam into a brain.
So there must be a limit to how much we can remember, because there's a limited amount of space. There's a limited number of neurons making up the brain, a big number of them, 86 billion or so, but still a limited number. But we haven't even come close to finding what that limit might be yet. Experiments have been done showing people thousands of pictures, for example, and people do have a very good memory for even thousands of pictures. But whatever the capacity might actually be, it's certainly going to be bigger than the amount of information Matibi's going to have to remember for his exams, so I'm sure he'll be okay.
And is there, I mean, there's the phrase use it or lose it. Is there any correlation between practicing with your memory on a regular basis and keeping it for longer? I mean, it seems that our memories seem to get worse as we get older.
Our memories do unfortunately get worse as we get older, and there's lots of different reasons why that might be. Part of it is that, as we get older, we tend to have more things that we have to remember, so that makes it more difficult to remember things than perhaps when we're younger. The more things we remember, the more our memories interfere with one another as well. So that's one of the main difficulties that sort of constrains how much we can remember, is that different memories interfere with one another, and then we find it more difficult to access the precise memory that we were actually looking for.
Oh, that's interesting. So you've got more stuff in there.
You have more stuff in there. The more overlap there is between these memories, the more they interfere with one another, the more difficult you're going to find it to access the precise memory that you were after.
I mean, he's young and prime of his life, but is there anything that you could suggest to him to stop those memories fading away like they do with all of us?
Well, I mean, the more that we think about our memories, the more likely it is we're going to be able to remember them in the future. So with important memories that we might really want to hold on to, that can be a useful strategy, is to actually to think about our memories, to go over them again and again.
To keep precious memories safely locked in our brains, we have to keep thinking about them, and this strengthens the physical connections in the brain. Matibi, I hope our digging has given you some tips for when you start university and your years of exams to come. Your brain may have a limit to the amount of memories it can form because it's a finite portable storage unit, an organic hard drive made of billions of neurons that can make connections. So in theory, there has to be a limit. It's just nobody's found that limit yet. And as our time with memory athletes has shown us, your brain, like your body, can be trained. Talking of which, here's Paco. He's one of the memory athletes, and he says he can remember 700 places of an infinite sequence of numbers known as pi. I asked him to prove it.
14155265348264326432383838383837892.
That's it for this edition of Crowd Science on the BBC World Service.
Today's question was from you, Matibi, and presented by me, Marnie Chesterton. Who was the producer?
Louisa Field.
Matibi, where should people send their questions if they have a question about anything, life, Earth, the universe?
They should email it to crowdscience@bbc.co.uk.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
1170679.
Hi, podcast listeners. Thank you for sticking with us to the dying seconds of this podcast. I've got a favour to ask. Actually, I've got two. Now, we just scratched the surface of this week's topic, so please do send us any more questions you have on memory. I'd love to come back to this topic in the future and do a programme around them. And also, do you have a favourite crowd science moment? Or a worst one? Has some fact or story really stuck with you? Please do send us your thoughts before the 20th of November if you would, and we might include them on an upcoming programme. The email is crowdscience@bbc.co.uk, or you can tweet us using the hashtag BBC Crowdscience. Next week, Anand Jagatir is back tackling the question, why are there morning people and night people? Why are some people up at the break of dawn while others are night owls?
Marnie, it's been 2 weeks since we came back from the Memory Championships in Spain. If I say house, what do you say?
I say tree, vase, road, brick, frog, tomato, sand, snow, milk, cow, cheese, sun, friend, window, sword, shoe, clock, train, family. I'm actually a little bit scared that list of random words is now hardwired into my brain. I can't remember quantum theory, but I can remember that nonsense.
Could you remember quantum theory before that?
I just keep teaching myself quantum theory, and I keep reading it, and then it keeps leaching out of my brain. So I keep getting it, and I keep having the same eureka moments again and again and again. And then I come back to it, and I'm like, oh, and then I have to read up about it again and again. So maybe we'll do a whole programme on quantum theory, and then I'll get it. There's a challenge for listeners.